Just another one of the thousands of shrines and temples here in Kyoto. It's coming down to be my last few days. Getting a bit sentimental. I really enjoyed my time here. So many just really magical moments and just lovely people. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard to sometimes, as we say in English, to crack the nut with Japanese people sometimes. It was hard to really, with the language barrier and some cultural barriers, it was quite hard sometimes to really get to know people here, to get to know things on a deeper level. But given 3 months, I was definitely able to make a good dent in it. I wouldn't say I've quite cracked the nut yet, but I guess that's reserved maybe for another visit to Japan. And I sure feel like I learned a lot, not just about the culture and the people, but also a lot about myself. And I think sometimes people struggle to understand why I'm living like this and why I'm traveling like this. But for me, it's the ultimate challenge of continuing to push myself outside of my comfort zone. You know, a lot of us get stuck and get very comfortable inside of a certain routine. And in a lot of ways, that's how we work. We try to conserve energy. We try and make things as convenient and easy as possible. And we go into this autopilot mode because that's a way to save energy. But that autopilot mode is the exact same reason why a lot of people also feel that they go into this sort of robot mode. You know, people feel like they're kind of half asleep or going through life unconsciously, or time is just passing them by. And that autopilot, very routine, monotonous rhythm, it's helpful in some ways. It certainly is exhausting when every day you have to think about, well, what am I going to do, and where do I sleep, and where do I get my groceries, and where are the showers, and where's the soap? I don't know. It certainly is exhausting when you have to figure out those basics. There's a lot of the magic of life that's locked behind the gates and the doors on the edges of the comfort zone. And it's on those edges of the comfort zone where you get to find the growth zone and this adventure. And for me, this way of traveling and living is one of the best, ultimate, and just most reliable ways of continuing to grow, continuing to learn. I just kind of reached that saturation point probably with Austria and Innsbruck, where I felt like I'm going through the motions. I'm not necessarily growing much. I'm not necessarily learning much. If anything, the longer I was there, I felt like I'm starting to see some of the downsides and the dirty sides kind of in the closet, you could say, under the table of what's going on here in society. That's not necessarily the stuff that you want to learn a lot about. The racism and micro-racism and bureaucracy and environmental degradation. When you start to see a lot more of that stuff and kind of see really how life and society works there and how things work, it's a lot of stuff that you maybe don't want to necessarily know. And it's not necessarily good stuff to learn. You don't want to grow into that stuff. You don't want to learn too much about that stuff because it's just dirty. So I think in a lot of ways, it was a great opportunity for me to challenge myself to get out of that bubble again. And at the end of the day, it's all about the growth, the learning. One of my good mentors and role models many years ago, he talked about how experience and learning and growing is the only thing I should be worried about and focused about at this stage in my life. Another mentor had said, think about it like this. You got 3 parts of your life. In the first third, the first part, you want to be learning, you want to be growing. And the second part, you want to be earning. And the third part, you want to be giving back. Our generation these days, let's say we're going to maybe live until we're almost 100 years old. So that's probably 33 years spending learning and growing. But I know a lot of friends and people that by the time they're in their early 20s, they want to start earning. They're all about the money. They're all about material success. They want to build that autopilot mode. And I think it's a shame because I think the world needs more out of us than just that we're good money earners, that we're good little capitalists, or that we're good little consumers, that we are good little productive worker bees in this system. I think the world needs more out of us. It needs more educated voters, more educated citizens and consumers. And I think the only way to do that is, again, to continue to, in a fun way, if you can make it fun, is to push yourself out of your comfort zone and not get totally unconscious into that autopilot mode. And also to find ways to grow individually, personally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's another thing I felt from this process. By living how I've lived and by traveling how I've traveled, I'm constantly forced out of my comfort zone, and I'm constantly forced to have to, again, let things go. I'm not able to get overly attached and obsessed with things. I can't endlessly buy things, own things, consume things. I have to move on. I have to let a lot of things go. At the end of now 3 months here in Japan, I've made some pretty good friends. I've got a handful of pretty good friends here, and I have to say goodbye to all of them. And I've had to do that so many times. I've had to say goodbye to so many people over the years. You know, some people might say that that's a shame, or that that's awful, or it's my own fault for doing that time and time again. You know, I don't have to live like this, right? So, but again, I think perhaps that's a little bit of one of the Buddhist teachings here, being in the East, but just learning to not get too overly attached and not get too overly obsessed with things, and learning to get good at letting go. And I think that that's something that in our Western world and in our modern society that's so obsessed around ownership and materialism, that's not something that we necessarily really learn about, is the importance of, yeah, sure, enjoy things, enjoy the moment, be in the moment, the here and the now. But to the extent that we get overly attached, overly obsessed with things and controlling of things, that's not good. And I'm sure that's happened to each and every one of us in a lot of ways. Yeah, thanks for being here on this journey where I, time and time again, keep trying to learn and to grow as much as I can about what's going on in this world, but also what's going on in myself and what's going on in ourselves as humans. A lot of the people I meet have had similar, you know, we might be totally different, but they've had similar lives. They've had similar problems, similar challenges. And we all sort of share a similar life in a lot of ways. Maybe some of us are very different than each other, but there's so many other people out there that are so similar to you and me. And so by meeting these people, by learning more about these places and learning more about myself, I'm able to grow. I'm able to become a bit more experienced. And I think over time, I'm able to gather little bits of wisdom and lessons and learnings. And that's what I'm most excited about, is just over time, step by step, becoming more experienced and wiser. And then to hopefully, time and time again, give back little things. So thanks for being a part of that. Thanks for being here on my journey. And you're the people that I hope I can give something back to. That means a lot to me. I don't want to do this all just for myself. I actually want to be able to give back. So let me know what your questions are. Let me know what your challenges are, what your problems are, and maybe I can help.